Well, it's that time of the week again. Time for another edition of the NFC West Huddle, where we hear from our experts from around the division. I'm Ethan McReynolds in Seattle. I'm joined by Robbie Baker in Phoenix. And welcome to the show, Mike Meback out in San Francisco. Mike, I don't know if you know this, but we normally have first-time guests do an interpretive dance as a sort of rite of passage into the show at the end of the episode. So I hope you came prepared.
Okay, yeah. You want me to let me put the IFB down? You want me to do that now, or
end of the episode? You know, we want to get to the meat of the episode first.
Oh, end of the episode.
Yeah. So we'll
okay. Then I'll just open up by saying thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, and go Niners. So
yeah,
I'll follow your lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's just get right into our first topic. The league is in the middle of voluntary OTA workouts. What is the biggest storyline to come out of OTAs for your team so far this week? Robbie, I'll go to you first with the Cardinals.
It's kind of boring, to be honest, but I would say for the Cardinals right now, it's kind of no news is good news. It's been business as usual for the Arizona Cardinals. Last week when we kind of saw them take the field for the first time, there was a lot of talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of looked like Keyshawn. He was really yoked. He looked like he put on a lot of weight during the offseason. But this week it's kind of just been, like I said, business as usual. Not a lot of news coming out of it. In terms of the voluntary nature of it, there have been a few guys that are not there right now. Calais Campbell has missed some of the workouts, but that's nothing to be concerned about if you're a Cardinals fan. Head coach Jonathan Gannon said he's well aware. The entire coaching staff, the front office, knows who was planning to be here, who was planning to come for the mandatory minicamp coming up next week. So right now, if you're a Cardinals fan, no news is good news in terms of injuries and kind of news breaking when it comes to these OTAs.
All right, Mike, we'll go over to you next. What's going on with the Niners?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was boring. I think there's a lot of excitement this week in Santa Clara, and I think there's one good storyline in between the lines, and then there's a couple outside the lines. And I'll start with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the man, the myth, the legend down here in the Bay Area. Look, he just signed that big contract, so there's a lot of eyes on him, not just across the league, but right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And guess who was the only vet to participate in 11s this week? And that was Brock Purdy. So I think Brock is dialed in and ready to go. I think the team picked up some extra weapons for him. I think he's excited about that. And he's starting to show that leadership role now that he's been paid. And people kind of look at the quarterback and say, all right, you got your paycheck. Now what are you going to do? What is he going to do? He's going to be at camp all summer long. So that's one good thing we saw this week. I think the other one that kind of made national headlines was the trade the Niners made for the defensive end from the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles, Bryce Huff. Look, Robert Saleh is back with the Niners, so he's running the defensive show. We saw what he did in the draft. D-pick, loading up. The Niners defense was awful last year, right? So the emphasis now is to get Nick Bosa some help on the line. They did that in the draft. They did that with this trade. So he didn't participate in any practice, but he was, he suited up. He was on the sidelines getting some work in. So it was good to see him out there. If there was the biggest storyline, I think it's, someone familiar with the LA Rams, and that is the veteran presence of a new receiver. And that receiver yesterday, I was like, he's 6'1", 210. I didn't know DeMarcus Robinson was 6'1". But DeMarcus Robinson, man, he's had a great week for the Niners. The veteran leadership that he is showing. And Brock Purdy was on the mic just yesterday saying, look, this guy, honestly, and I won't quote him, but he said this guy did not mess up. He's dialed in. He knows the playbook. He's ready to go. And we've got a young core of receivers. So to have him with the Niners this year is exciting. We saw the excitement just this week.
Well, yeah, for moving on to the Seahawks, not a huge surprise, but unfortunately it's the quarterback play, specifically with Sam Darnold. On Monday, it was the first day of OTAs that was open to the media, and Darnold on that day reportedly didn't have a great day. It was highlighted by throwing 2 picks in a 3-play sequence in red zone drills. Head coach Mike Macdonald was asked the next day on a radio interview whether anything other than an injury could lead to Darnold losing his starting spot. Macdonald said, quote, "You guys are crazy." He absolutely backed his new signal caller, similar to how he defended Geno Smith throughout all of last season. Now, a lot of comparisons have been made to 2012 when the Hawks signed veteran Matt Flynn in free agency and then drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Seattle not only has the veteran free agent to play that role in Darnold and a 3rd-round pick in Jalen Milroe, but also Drew Lock, who has familiarity with the franchise and has been taking snaps with the second team. So a couple of, options behind Darnold if play does not back up the contract. The one difference is how McDonald is handling it compared to Pete Carroll. Pete came in saying every single spot has to be earned through competition. He held that same tune throughout his entire tenure in Seattle. That opened the door for Russ back in 2012. McDonald taking the exact opposite approach, at least when it comes to his quarterback here in the summer in June. So very safe to say that no matter how many picks Darnold throws in June with no pads on, he'll still be set to start for the Hawks against the Niners in Week 1. All right. Let's move on to our second topic. What's the biggest key for your team to win the division this year? Mike, you're up first with the Niners.
Not to steal a line from Top Gun, but I'm going to go with speed here, man. Speed is key for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, look, they were slow. I mentioned defense was terrible last year. Part of that was because they were slow. I think on the offensive side, they were slow compared to 2 years ago. And I'll point to Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the Offensive Player of the Year in 23 was awesome. I mean, that breakout speed was phenomenal. And that's why he won that award and had such a great season. And then he had the injury last year. And then when he did come back, he just wasn't himself. And when he slowed down, I feel like the rest of the team slowed down. He was here this week, so he wasn't going 100%, but he was out there. So I'm excited to see the speed and Christian McCaffrey come back. Obviously, Kittle and Juice aren't as fast as him, but then we do have, again, those young core of receivers on this team. And so I think with Brock Purdy having more weapons at his disposal, get them the ball and then go. Right? So on the offensive side of the ball, you got to have that speed. And the same could be said for the defensive side of the ball. And I think we got faster in the offseason. As long as we stay healthy, we're good to go. And I think speed is the key for the Niners. And I'll just throw in there a little extra credit here, but special teams, my guy. We can't get much worse than we were last season. Catch the punt. Right? Hold on to the ball. Kick the ball through the uprights. Little things that will make a big difference for the Niners this season.
Yeah, I mean, the speed of those skill position players is definitely something that made the Niners not very fun to play against the last couple of years. I'll go next with the Seahawks. I think it's the same as it's been the past few seasons. The biggest key is the offensive line. It's really not that complicated. It's been a problem for the better part of a decade, and it was very prevalent last year with Geno taking 50 sacks, good for third in the entire league. Pass protection is important, but even more so is being able to run the ball, something the Seahawks have not been able to do very effectively the past few years. Seattle hasn't been in the top half of the league in rushing yards per game since 2021. In the last 2 years, they've been in the bottom 5 in that category at less than 100 yards per game. It's just not going to get it done. Now, there's optimism that the line will improve with the new coaching staff coming in, with adding first-round pick Gray Zabel to that offensive line. He's going to be the team's starting left guard Week 1. Barring anything unforeseen. But there's also a very realistic possibility that it's the same story for the Hawks and that Sam Darnold can't mitigate some of the problems up front like Geno Smith was able to do. With the step forward I expect the defense to take in year 2 under Mike McDonald, the Seahawks have a realistic shot at winning the division, but it starts and ends with getting better play up front from that offensive line. Robbie, I'll go to you next. What about the Cards? What's their biggest key to winning the division?
Well, a lot will be made about the Cardinals' defense because they basically used all their capital this offseason when it came to the draft and adding free agents to the defensive side of the ball in terms of adding Josh Sweat, and all of their draft picks except for one were defensive players. But if the Cardinals are going to win the division, it's going to come down to Kyler Murray. This is kind of the make or break season, it feels like, for Kyler Murray here in the desert. He's entering, if I'm remembering right, his 7th season in the NFL. Still has not won a playoff game, only played in one playoff game. And it's kind of become the theme with these Cardinals teams. It was especially prevalent under Cliff Kingsbury, and it's kind of happened a little bit now under Jonathan Gannon, where this team fades down the stretch in those pivotal games late in the season in November and December. Last year, they went into the bye week on a 4-game winning streak. It seemed like they were set up to make a push for the playoffs, potentially the division. And Ethan, you know, the Seahawks came at them as they came out of their bye week and punched them in the mouth 2 times, and the Cardinals kind of never recovered from that. If the Cardinals are going to win the division, it's because Kyler Murray does take that proverbial next step. The weapons are around him. James Conner, Trey Benson in the backfield. The offensive line has been bolstered. There are some question marks on it, but overall, I think people feel good about where the Cardinals' offensive line is. Kyler Murray needs to ascend to that quasi-MVP level where the Cardinals win games because of Kyler Murray, not losing games in spite of him.
Robbie, I want to follow up with you there. Just I'm curious about Kyler Murray. What's the feeling in Phoenix with? Is there more faith behind Kyler Murray that he can turn into that guy and take this team on a deep playoff run, or is there more pessimism that maybe this is going to be the last run? What's sort of the feeling out there?
It's kind of hard to say overall. I think the team is, very much like Mike McDaniel has done with Sam Darnold. The team is 1,000,000% publicly behind Kyler Murray, as they have been from day one since Jonathan Gannon and his staff took over. But when you look at just the body of work, I think the fan base is kind of feeling right now like, okay, there has been this is the season now, year 3 under this coaching staff, where they spent money in free agency. They're adding more pieces than they have in the past in terms of free agents and trades and the draft picks they made. This feels like a team that should be in the playoffs this year. And if they don't get there, then that's when you start getting the questions where, is it the quarterback? Is it the coach? Is what is holding this team back? And the only constant through this stretch of the last 7 to 8 years really has been the quarterback. So I think that's where people will look at if the Cardinals don't make the playoffs.
Well, the new Call of Duty coming out in October, we'll see how Kyler does with that. We'll see how he plays this year. All right, let's move on. Next topic, staying in the division. Do you think your team's divisional record this year will improve from last season? Michael, go to you first with the Niners. They went 1-5 last year. I can't imagine you think they wouldn't improve, but how well do you think the Niners do in their divisional matchups in 2025, starting with a Week 1 game against my Seahawks?
I tell you what, if they do not improve their divisional record, I may put my fist through my bedroom door, which would in turn make my wife not happy, which in turn would make the children not happy. That's a whole thing. We won't go there because I strongly believe that the San Francisco 49ers division record will be better than 1-5. So, look, with the one game they won last year against Seattle, I think they won by 12. We'll throw that game out. The last game of the season, whenever that was, January 5th against the Cardinals, we got torched. Let's throw that game out. So the 4 losses last year in the division, the Niners were in them, right? I think they lost by 1 point, 3 points, maybe a game by 6 points. So they were there. So I'm confident that this year they're going to look at those tapes and they're going to use that as fuel to win the division, right? That's number one goal for this team, is to win the division. And again, I think for Shanahan and John Lynch, going 6-11 just overall, that's just not 49er football. So they're pissed, they're fired up, they know the fan base is not happy after last season. So if they can stay healthy and then open up the gates with that Week 1 win against Seattle, I mean, yeah, I think the Niners will flip the switch. I think they're going to do it pretty easily. If they can stay healthy, I'm hoping for a 5-1 division record this coming season.
Wow. Just flipping the script on them right there. I'll go next. The Seahawks were 4-2 last year in their divisional games. I really can't see them getting any better than that. I feel like that would be a best-case scenario. I think with the schedule this year going through it, the divisional games might be the toughest part of their schedule outside of the Washington Commanders. They don't really have many tough games outside of their division. That sort of goes through all the divisional teams. I had them only winning their 2 games against the Cardinals when I was going through the schedule because of how tough the Rams play them and the Niners being, getting more fully healthy this year compared to last year. Out of those 4 games, the 2 against the Rams, 2 against the Niners, Week 1 at home against the Niners would be the one that I could see them winning. With San Francisco just still waiting for some pieces to return from injury, you sort of get them before they're going to be full strength, hopefully. But I don't love having to play the Rams twice in the second half of the year, sort of when they've proven that they can hit their stride. And the Niners have the easiest schedule in all of football this season. When the Hawks close the season in Santa Clara, the Niners are going to be on an absolute tear. From Week 11 on, the Seahawks are the only team that finished last year over 500 on the Niners schedule. It's sort of a cakewalk from Week 11 on before they get the Seahawks in that final week. I still like the Seahawks to get a wild card spot and do their work outside of the division, but I don't love where their games with the Niners and Rams fall. I think the Seahawks get 2, hopefully 3 wins in the division. I would be pretty happy with a 3-3 record. Robbie, let's go over to you. The Cardinals, 500, 3-3 in the division last season. Do you see them improving that mark this year?
I think that is probably safe to say where they would end up again. Division games, as you guys both alluded to, they're always tight battles, right? And the Cardinals in recent history in the NFC West have kind of been the punching bag of the division, unfortunately, for Cardinals fans. When you look at the way the Cardinals division schedule stacks up, basically all their division games come before Week 11. They will play much like the Seahawks. They'll play the Rams 2 times later in the season, which, as you alluded to, Ethan, is not ideal if you're a Cardinals fan, with the way that the Rams sort of get stronger as the season goes on and the Cardinals tend to fade. If the Cardinals can start fast, like they historically do, 2 of their first 4 games are within the division. If they can nab 2 wins in their first 4 in the NFC West, maybe they can get to 4-2 in the division. But I think 3-3 is probably the safest bet for where the Cardinals end up here.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight division. I would not be surprised to see any of the 4 teams in this division come away with the NFC West crown, so those division games are definitely going to be fun to watch. All right, let's move on to our next topic. It's been rumored for a while now the NFL could move to an 18-game schedule, some saying as early as 2027, and some saying that it's inevitable. What are your thoughts on the league potentially adding another game after adding a 17th game not too long ago in 2021? I'll go first here. I wasn't a fan when they added an extra game a few years back, and I'm definitely not a fan of this move either. Football, it's one of the most physically demanding sports out there, and we're asking these players to go through an extra week of punishment in what is already a long season. Other than trying to make a few extra bucks, I really don't see any reason from a competitive standpoint to add another game. The 17 games is more than enough for teams to show that they deserve a playoff spot. I don't really see any teams that could win the Super Bowl missing the playoffs just because they didn't get an extra game to try to prove themselves, win a tiebreaker or whatever, get into the field. I just don't see enough added benefit other than the bottom line for NFL owners that would outweigh the additional physical punishment that the players have to endure. I will say one thing. If you do add the 18th game, add a second bye, for the love of God. Please. These players need rest if you're going to add more games. Robbie, I'll go to you. What do you think about all this? Adding another game, what's your take?
Well, I mean, you said it all right there, Ethan. Let's just call a spade here. This is going to happen, right? Because there's money on the table. The 18th game is going to be streamed on, directly to a chip in our head or something someday. Like, this is where this is all going. More games in more places, sent out to more people, played in different countries. The NFL just keeps expanding and keeps expanding, and they've already basically swallowed up the entire sports calendar. Adding an extra week would probably mean adding another bye week, like you said, Ethan, which basically extends the schedule. Probably you're pushing the beginning of March, and you're starting to encroach on the March Madness territory of college basketball, and the NFL would probably be fine with that. Then you're basically rolling from that right into the combine, right into the draft. There would never be any gap, as if there was one now, in the NFL schedule. I don't get it. I think you add another game, whether you add another bye week or not. What happens if you're say the Ravens, and by the time you get to the playoffs, Derrick Henry he's got nothing left? Then what's the point of the playoffs that you got to? The Chiefs the last season, their offensive line was banged up. We see this happen year after year. There is a sense of luck that needs to happen if you're going to make a run to the Super Bowl, because you have to be healthy, the chips have to fall in place. But adding another game adds an extra variable where your team may not be at 100% at the most critical time. But like I said, there is millions and millions and millions of dollars at stake, which means the billionaires that make these decisions will say, yes, I would like a few more millions to add to my billions, so they will likely add this 18th game if I had to predict.
Well, when we're talking about billions, I feel like the owners aren't really thinking about the players. And, it's a grind for them, but it's also a grind for these fantasy football owners out there. An extra week, I'm already exhausted by week 12. I don't know if I can do an extra week. But, Mike, what do you think about the league adding an extra 18th game to the schedule eventually?
Yeah, you guys hit points. I think it's a joke. I think it's ridiculous. I'm on the side of the players, but as an old general manager once told me, no matter what story you're on of the day, just follow the money, right? That'll lead you to the end of the story. So this is a money-driven idea. I think 17 was a money-driven idea. Just looking at the schedule for the Niners, we have a late bye this season. So I'm worried about just staying healthy, trying to get to that bye. So I like the idea if it does go 18. Every team's going to need 2 byes. So, but yeah, next thing you know, the Super Bowl is going to be, on St. Patrick's Day. I mean, it is in March. It's getting ridiculous. And I do worry about the players because, I think about NBA, and I think that schedule's too long already as it is. And I think about how many times does Steph Curry go on the road, and there are Warrior fans everywhere, and there's the young kid out there who wants to see him, but he's in a back-to-back or he's banged up, and they spent $400 on a ticket, and Steph doesn't even play that night. So, you think about the fans around the country who want to see the Seahawks or the Rams or the Niners, you got to think about the fan base. But unfortunately, I don't know if the owners do. And I think eventually, if they do go 18, here's my guess. If this goes 18, the Super Bowl will be held outside of the United States on foreign soil sometime in the next 10 years. So that's my guess. I'm guessing London. I know Goodell, he loves going international, so why not bring a Super Bowl? As if there's going to be a London team, then we're going to have the Super Bowl probably the year prior to that inaugural season in London, and it'll be there to kick off or something. So I think that's where they're going to go. I hope they don't. I like 16 where it was, but obviously I lost that bet.
Yeah. I don't think it's far-fetched at all to have a Super Bowl in London. I think it's ridiculous from a competitive standpoint to have your championship on foreign soil, making these players travel. They're not going to be at their best. But Mike, you bring up a really good point with the NBA and load management. There's a reason that these teams load manage to make sure that they're ready for the playoffs. You extend the regular season too long. That's what these teams need to do to win a championship, and that dilutes the product. You're not really getting the best out of an NFL regular season. All right, let's move on.
Real quick, Ethan, on that point, if you're Jacksonville, I think is it Jacksonville that plays back-to-back or Minnesota? There's a team that plays back-to-back overseas games this year. So let's just say Jacksonville is back-to-back overseas weeks. There's an 18-game schedule, and then you're coming back home from that. What is to say then that the Jaguars coming off of that don't say, you know what, Travis Hunter, probably load management. You have all these people coming to see the former Heisman winner, and he's not playing, not because he's injured, but they have so many games, they got to make sure he's ready for the biggest games of the season. And as we all know, NFL tickets are not cheap.
You don't want teams to have to pick and choose which games they're going to go all out for. That completely goes against everything the league's against. So it's going to be interesting to see how, eventually when they do go to an 18-game schedule, most likely how all the dynamics change within the league. And Mike, if they go, teams start acting like NBA teams with load management, it's really interesting. All right, let's go to our final topic before we get out of here. Saquon Barkley was recently named the covered athlete of Madden 26. So, who from your team would you want to be on the cover of Madden? But you also have to take into account the Madden curse. So who would be a good representative for your team, but also someone you would be okay sacrificing to injury given the curse? Robbie, I'll go over to you first.
If we were going on merit, if you will, Trey McBride probably deserves it. He's now the highest paid tight end in the league, and he's kind of becoming the face of the Cardinals offense. But I would not be crazy about sacrificing Trey to the so-called Madden curse. I love my guy, James Conner. He's kind of the heart and soul of the Cardinals offense. Unfortunately, we do kind of get used to penciling in 2 to 3 games a year where James is already banged up. So maybe I will kind of put James Conner out there. He's been in the league for a while. People know him. Great story coming back from cancer in college to get drafted by the Steelers and find his way to the Cardinals. So I will say James Conner in the curse angle because there is unfortunate likelihood he may miss 2 to 3 weeks anyways from injury.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking the same thing. On merit for the Seahawks, I'm going with JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. He's one of the best receivers in the league last year in a breakout second year. I think he'd be an awesome representative from the Seahawks to be on the cover. If we're going with the curse angle, my first thought with my producers down in the sports department was Ken Walker. This last season, he was so banged up, I couldn't justify giving him to you guys in a sacrifice. I did not think he contributed enough on the field, so I am going to go with JSN, both on merit and who I would have to sacrifice. Losing him would not be easy whatsoever, but with the new offensive staff's emphasis on running the ball, bringing in a fullback into the new system, I think losing a wideout out of all of the positions that I could choose from would probably be the position I would want to lose if I had to pick. My other options, I was thinking of Leonard Williams, Devin Witherspoon that could deserve it via, on merit. I really don't think the defense could weather the storm without either of those guys. We saw the defensive line without Leonard Williams in the middle of last season, and they were hurting. They have a lot of depth there, but Leonard Williams just does so many things, from stuff in the run to rushing the passer from the interior. And Devin Witherspoon is just all over the field. He's so integral to what Mike McDonald is doing, disguising coverages and making sure that quarterbacks can't pick them apart in the secondary. So out of those guys, it really pains me to say it. I think it is JSN for my pick. Unless you guys let me get away with saying Pro Bowl punter Michael Dixon. I mean, he's sort of a weapon back there. I'll sacrifice him. I think he'd be awesome on the cover. Make history as the first punter cover athlete ever. It could be fun.
Hey, punters are people too. Punters are people too, okay?
Yes, they are.
They are.
Mike, I'll go over to you. Who's your Madden cover athlete from the Niners?
Well, if you're going punter, then I'm going to go alumni. I'm going to put Sweet 16 Joe Montana on the cover because he can't get hurt. He's already hurt and banged up, and he got his 4 bowls. We haven't lost a Super Bowl with the man. I got married on the 16th because of him, so I want Joe Montana on the cover of Madden if I really had a choice. Now, if I had to go active player, as you gentlemen have brought this to my attention, I would say I would love to see George Kittle on the cover of Madden with the hair flowing, maybe jumping over the Golden Gate, catching a ball. Number 85 for the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's got the respect of all the tight ends in the league, of a lot of the players in the league, and defensive players especially. It's hard to say that because you wanted to keep him in play. We all saw what happened to Christian McCaffrey, and he fumbled in the first quarter in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and it just went kind of downhill for him since then. So, but if I had to go active, I'd go 85. I'd throw George Kittle up there.
There we go. Yeah, there are our Madden cover athletes. A lot of fun. All right, that's going to do it. Mike, you're lucky. We ran out of time, so no interpretive dance, unless you want to, be my guest. But you are off the hook. That's going to do it for us.
Maybe next time around.
There
but
we
thank
go.
you for having me again. It was fun.
We'll have you back on here for sure. That's going to do it for us here on the NFC West Huddle. You can catch us every week covering the latest news from around the division. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.